Hi everybody, welcome to my unit plan, which is a unit on gas laws and vapor pressure and kinetic molecular theory. And so I called it my gas laws unit because we do a lot of calculations with gas laws. The first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the platform that I'm using to create this screencast. It's called Explain Everything, and a couple of you guys had asked me questions about it. So this is an app on my iPad, and what it allows me to do is it allows me to use a pointer to talk about gas laws, or it allows me to draw directly onto the screen so I can sign my name directly on the screen, and it allows me to erase things. And let's see what else it allows me to do. It allows me to zoom out and zoom in onto certain areas. Another thing that this platform allows me to do is to embed existing image, video files, audios, or I can even do a video on to the next page. And on this page, I embedded my Google Classroom so that everybody can see how this works. And for this unit plan, this was the platform that I decided to use. And on the left here, you can see that I made a unit for each unit that I do during the school year. And I'll scroll up so that you can see. And for this unit plan, I focused on Unit 10, gas laws, and I put Unit 10, Lesson 1, Unit 10, Lesson 2, and so on and so forth. And I did 5 subunits for this gas laws unit. Now for my first lesson, I did a lesson on phase change diagrams, and included in this lesson, I talked about solids, liquids, and gases, and in order to avoid having to stand in front of the class, I created what we call a hyperdoc. Now, a hyperdoc, I'm going to show you on the next slide, is a document that allows students to explore on their own. So here on this slide, you can see that I clicked into lesson 1, and this is what the students would see. They would see heating and cooling curves, and that's a hyperdoc, and then they would see their castle learning, which I'll explain in a second. Now this hyperdoc, I'm going to shrink this down so it's out of our way, and over here I have a hyperdoc that, I'm not going to make it too big so we can see it. In this hyperdoc, I put a couple different sections for the students, and I'm allowing them to explore using these 4 websites. And in the first website, let's see if I can get it to click on it for you. The first website is a website that allows them to do some reading and some exploring on their own. And the second website, which I've clicked to, is an interactive website that allows them to explore the intermolecular forces that we discussed during lecture on what happens to those forces as we turn from a solid to a liquid to a gas, and so forth. After the students have done exploring, they're going to explain using a video, audio, or slideshow presentation, their choice, the concepts that they learned while they were exploring the websites above. Then they're going to apply their knowledge on an interactive website called teachchem.org, and there's instructions for them to follow here. I don't have time to go through that, but you understand you can visit that. And then I put a real-world application, and we all remember this from when we were kids, when the freezer used to get all full of frost, and we talk about in class why this might happen. Then at the very bottom here, let's see, I gotta scroll up a little bit more. We'll go to no thanks because we don't want that. And you can see I've also incorporated a flip grid where they're going to reflect on how heat and temperature differ and what's the difference between heat and temperature. And in class we discussed how heat is dependent on the mass of the object and temperature is just a direct measurement of the kinetic energy in the molecules. So this hyperdoc is really about self-exploration and getting the kids to explore on their own without me standing at the front of the room. In lesson number 2 of this unit plan, I used a infographic for the kids to demonstrate their knowledge, and I also used some Google Forms to collect some data. Alright, so for lesson number 2, the kids would come to the Google Classroom and they would hit on lesson number 2, which is right here, and when they do that, it's going to bring them to these activities that they are going to perform. And the first one that I have up here is a gas laws activity, and in that gas laws activity they're going to create an infographic that shows either how pressure and temperature are related to ideal versus real gases, how pressure and temperature are related, or how temperature and volume are related. And they're going to explain the acronym PLIGHT, which we talked about in class. Now I've given the kids a couple different options on how to do this. The first option that I gave them in class was to go to canva.com, which I have here, and they could browse the site and they could pick a design template, icons, photos, what have you. And there's lots of them to choose from, and they have to design something that explains ideal versus real gases. Another option that I gave the kids was to just go into a Google Doc, a Google Drawing, and to create a picture that illustrated ideal versus real gases. In lesson number 3, my kids were calculating heat. They're using Blabberize or My Talking Pet, which is an app on an iPad, which I have in class, to create and solve real-world heat calculations. And I'm going to show you an example of that because we did start doing these in class and something I want to expand on next year.
Hey everyone. It's really hot out here today. I need your help. I need to get the water in my bowl to go from 25 degrees Celsius to 10 degrees Celsius.
So I cut it short just for time's sake, but you can see that these would be pretty fun for the kids because they'd be using their own pets to create and to answer their own heat calculations. In lesson number 4, gas laws, I used calculations using Boyle's law, Charles' law, and combined gas law. I used a PhET activity, which is an online lab activity, which allows the kids to see things that they normally wouldn't. And I'm also using a mind map that I created a structure for in Lucidchart. So when the kids open up this activity, they're going to get this sort of explanation / worksheet, and there is a link for the Lucidchart, which I'll show you in a second, and some resources listed here at the bottom. Alright, so this is another thing that Explain Everything can do, and it's a good thing because on the Explain Everything, when you embed the web page, it would not allow me to sign in using my Google. And what the kids would see on their Chromebook when they hit the Lucidchart app here, or program, is this gas laws mind map that I started for them, and they would make arrows and complete this gas laws mind map, and then they would save it as a PDF and hand it in on their Google Classroom. Alright, so we're back into the Google Classroom, and that takes care of the Lucidchart, but I also have in here a gas laws lab, which is an interactive virtual gas laws lab where the kids get to take a look at how gases behave in different situations. And I embedded a lab that I took pictures to show them exactly what they need to do. I also have included a gas laws quizzes that the kids would click on to work on in class, and also, if I can get there, a Nearpod lesson that they will do in class with me, and it has all the different gases, what a real gas is, the combined gas law, and some interactives where they're going to answer them as we are talking about it in class. My final lesson, lesson 5, has to do with vapor pressure. using vapor pressure to collect data, graph data, using Google Sheets. So we're using Google Sheets so that kids learn how to manipulate the data on Google Sheets and learn how to make a graph. So here we are on lesson 5. I'll just click lesson 5. And in lesson 5, I have the vapor pressure lab, which includes every student getting a copy of this. If they click up here on the vapor pressure lab, let's do that. See if we can show you what that looks like. The vapor pressure lab is done in Google Sheets. So when the kids open up the lab, they're going to get this website link, which I'm not going to click on. And then the lab is written on this Google Sheet. You can see that this is a Google Sheet right here because I have all these numbers and these things. Now, if I was on the regular thing, let me go and grab you a copy. Okay, here we are back on the Chromebook, and you can see down here that you have a data tab where they're going to go on the virtual lab, collect the data, and that data is going to be plotted right here on this graph. And then they have another tab here, which is a series of questions that they have to answer based on this data. Okay? So that gives them something that they can actually manipulate the data on the Google Sheets. So I'm learning that a lot of these websites will load through, explain everything, but this is an example of the assessment that I was doing with quizzes on gas laws, and it has which of the following temperatures is appropriate to convert 25 degrees Celsius to Kelvin, and then you can see the timer is running out. But the kids can access this on their Chromebooks and can quiz themselves, can send me the results through their Google Classroom, and all is well with the world. Finally, for my final assessment in this unit plan, I use something called Castle Learning. The kids are going to log in, and once they're logged in, they're going to go their assignments, and here are my assignments that I have assigned to them recently. But if you go to Unit 10, Gas Laws, I have a series of assignments that they will be taking. And those assessments, you can see the students have completed 52 out of 65, 50 out of 65, and these are all Regents-based questions, and they get immediate feedback. All right, so that wraps up my unit plan. Hopefully I didn't go over my 10 minutes. I hope that it gives you a good overview of what I've been working on for the last 10 weeks. It was great working with everybody, and I can't wait to see everybody else's unit plans. So